I feel as though it's becoming a running theme where I go inactive for a while and then I suddenly pop up with a bunch of excuses as to why I was away, but oh boy do I have a story for you. Lately it seems as though technology has had it out for me for the past couple of weeks that I'm almost certain it's some kind of message being sent from a place far beyond this mortal world, but let's get straight to the tale of how it all began. And as a forewarning, if you don't like listening to me ramble about all my first world problems, you can skip to this part of the video where I spend the remainder of your time complaining about Team Fortress 2. So I was recording a playthrough for Shovel Knight and things were going pretty well. To set the stage here about how much technology hates me, when I was recording the 6th episode of the playthrough, I was using Audacity and Fraps to record my mic audio and game footage respectively. Anyhow, Audacity sporadically decided that it hated me and began to actively skip parts of the recorded audio every few seconds. As a side note, I'd actually been using an older version of Audacity at this point, and if you're wondering what the reason behind that is, newer versions appeared to actively delete any audio I tried to record. I honestly can't tell you why that is, it's just weird. So I wasn't really able to revert the progress that I'd done in the video. I decided to hold off on playing Shovel Knight for a while, erased my profile, and just decided to wait until I felt like recording again. So a few weeks passed and I decided to download a new audio recording software named Ocean Audio, and it works like a charm. I'm actually using it right now. The previous TF2 gameplay I uploaded was actually a test disguised as a gameplay to see how well the program worked. And as it turns out, yeah, I love it. So a few more days pass afterwards, and I begin to feel like recording Shovel Knight again, and then one day I returned to my computer after about half a day had passed, and I discovered that everything was frozen. Like, everything. I couldn't interact with anything at all. So I decided to reboot and try to fix the problem, and it worked out pretty smoothly until I decided to open any applications that need to connect to the internet. So my computer froze again, I rebooted a few more times, and I eventually managed to get CCleaner running to clear out my files and my registry, which temporarily fixed the problem. I soon discovered with the help of a few friends recommending a certain cleaning software that my CPU usage kept shooting up to 100. And the problem, not really sure if it ever really was resolved. Since I was stuck there for a while, it was eventually theorized that this issue was occurring because I hadn't updated Windows in a long time. And let me tell you, I had updates disabled ever since Microsoft tried to force everyone to upgrade to Windows 10 without consent. I should remind you that I am a professional idiot who makes such mistakes as disabling Windows updates, so you won't have to. In the end, my PC kept freezing on me every time I tried to start up a Windows update. I think I found some sort of workaround method to enable it via command line, if I'm recalling correctly. My memory is a bit hazy on some of the finer details because I'd spent about a whole week trying to fix my computer. Anyway, back to the plot. Windows updates began to install, about 203 of them. And this is not a good thing. You know why? Because Windows can only handle so many updates at a time, and if you exceed the limit and you don't bother doing it in stages, Windows will fail to load upon reboot entirely. And sure enough, this happened. And I got a black screen of death before I had a chance to even log into my profile. So, after spending countless hours trying to find a way to fix the problem, the conclusion I arrived upon was that I needed to use my Windows 7 disk to try and repair my computer. None of the repair options even worked, didn't even have a backup system image to restore to either. So that's mistake number 2 right there. You should probably be writing this stuff down. It's always important to have a backup system image available. I can't stress that enough. I ran the command prompt to load my drivers and then discovered that my C drive, of all things, is just gone. Like, completely. The computer didn't even know it existed anymore. And research, of course, turned up jack shit in regards to similar problems. I even took a look inside my machine and yeah, everything was wired properly. Eventually, a friend provided me with an Ubuntu operating system for a flash drive to help me access my remaining files, so you know I could at least back something up, namely some of the stuff I had on my second hard drive that I use for storing video footage. When I went to boot up Ubuntu, I went to inspect my files, and hey, my C drive is there, with everything still on it. What? I cannot even begin to comprehend why Windows is unable to see it. So, I bought a backup drive, spent a few days backing up all my files, and then I reinstalled Windows. So of course, with Windows still claiming it can only detect my secondary drive, which is my D drive for the record, I reinstalled Windows on that, set everything up so things are back to normal, and I can safely say that almost everything has been resolved, with the exception of the fact that it still doesn't recognize that there are 2 hard drives in there. I'm at my wit's end at this point. I've done as much research on the issue at hand, and I'm pretty much ready to give up trying to resolve this problem on my own. Maybe the hard drive has seen better days, but that still doesn't explain why Ubuntu can detect it, but Windows for some odd reason cannot. So, having set everything up again, Fraps is terrible for this computer because it's only running on 1 hard drive. I'd gone ahead and acquired a new recording software, which is Direct 3D Gear. Works like a charm, is much less demanding than Fraps, and this time I actually bothered to obtain the full version legally. But that's the end of that tirade. It's been a wild ride from start to finish, and I'm so glad that it's all over. So, it's time for us to talk about TF2 balance changes! And here was me thinking that this game was dead. I used to look forward to all of these major updates when they'd rebalance a bunch of weapons, usually to see if they could make the underused ones any good at all, but as of late, I've learned to dread these as they've appeared over the horizon. Thankfully, however, Valve has gone ahead and given us all of the gory details on what the things they're going to be changing are, and they're also looking for community feedback, so before they hit that big red button, we might have a chance to revert some of those changes if I'm understanding correctly. I'm just glad that I have time to dread some of them in the first place. So, let's first discuss the Sandman and Guillotine combo. For anyone who's been on my channel and has seen some of my Scout gameplays, you probably know that I generally favor the Sandman and Guillotine combo. So let's start by addressing the issue of the complaints about the long-range Sandman ball randomly stunning enemy players. To be fair, that's not exactly something I can argue against, but nevertheless, you can make the same argument in regards to the Huntsman, where about 35% of the time, an arrow shot from a distance can hit just about any player by chance. I don't know, I just find that you can't really counter the unexpected. Also recognizing the fact that the stun ball is slower and built strictly around incapacitating enemies rather than straight up killing them, that's kind of an important detail. So the Guillotine combo might be killed completely, you know, one of the things that actually made Scout fun in the first place. I will defend this to my explosive death. There is a high skill ceiling involved for properly using the stun and cleave combo. Based around how both projectiles have different speeds and adjusting to predicting player movement not only in order to stun them, but to finish them off with a well-timed guillotine throw, that's not the easiest task in the world to accomplish. And I think any scout worth his salt would realize that simply using the scattergun is far more efficient. There's already a sacrifice being made by equipping the Sandman and Guillotine in the first place, because the Guillotine by itself is just not all that reliable. Say what you will about combo-based items, but this solved one of Scout's biggest problems, by granting him an alternative to the ranged damage of the pistol, at the cost of lower base health and not being very good against sentry guns. In regards to some of the other item changes which I find just straight up weird, the base jumper is just now being made worse. Apparently people are incapable of aiming towards targets in the sky, especially when they're flying much slower when using the chute in the first place. The Ambassador will no longer reliably headshot at a distance, mainly because of people like this.
Oh, this is the part where they all come for revenge. They all know we're here. He's headshot. Oh!
And the Rescue Ranger will have a healing rate that depletes metal depending on how much the sentry is healed per point. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about this. In fact, I'm not entirely sure how I should feel about a lot of these changes, because they're mainly changing items which I barely use in the first place. Again, reiterating how TF2 balance changes usually take a look at some of the more underused weapons and try to make them more usable, that's a good thing. But the only really positive feedback I can offer for some of these is just for 3 items. The Danger Shield will probably make you immune to afterburn and resistant to fire. Perhaps it's the sadistic bastard inside of me that holds a passionate hatred towards both playing pyro and fighting enemy pyros, but this change just kinda makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. On the other hand, this also removes the usefulness of flare guns against snipers, and one could probably argue that the inclusion of flare guns in the first place is what killed TF2's overall balance, but let's be honest here. This game will never reach that fine point of balancing, so I'm just gonna go with the flow and laugh as the rest of the internet dissolves into a factory of salt. The Vitasaw may allow you to store more Ubercharge available after respawning, depending on how many times you've hit your target, up to around 60% I believe it said. I actually admire this idea of encouraging medics to go for a last-ditch emergency melee attack. It at least makes the partially built Ubercharge on respawn feel a bit more rewarding. Mantreds! 200% air control. This sounds so goddamn ridiculous, but at the same time, I'm really itching to see if this will make them any good at all. Oh yeah, and they're also trying to change the panic attack again. Who really gives a shit? I suppose the one thing I won't hesitate to say I fully support would be the nerf to the Dead Ringer that they're proposing. Like, Valve has consistently managed to corner themselves when making a vague attempt to balance this stupid thing, and admittedly, I don't expect this nerf to actually pass, and even if it does, it probably won't stop a lot of spy players from using it anyway. The larger issue at hand is that this watch has just become the most predictable thing about spy. Despite not playing as much anymore, I almost always feel the need to grab the nearest ammo crate or check specific areas after supposedly killing a spy. And seeing as how I like to watch people squirm whenever balance changes are unfavorable to them, I say go all out and run this item through the ground. Admittedly, I'm somewhat surprised that they didn't try to nerf the Caber again, just as a middle finger to all the Demo Man players expecting him to receive any item changes as well. But, who knows, the update centered around Pyro has not revealed any information on his own balance changes, so perhaps there's a small glimmer of hope for hidden Demoman changes. But it's most likely that they won't be nerfing the Caber. They'll nerf the Tide Turner again instead. Anyhow, that about covers everything I wanted to get off of my chest, so if everything goes as planned, we'll be back in business for this channel's activity, and there will surely be more videos to come complaining about TF2 and all that jazz. You want my recommendation? Don't watch any upcoming videos related to TF2. Unless you get off to the sounds of an angry Canadian. You sick
Fuck the chop! The whack a hat! And of course, the ever famous turkey card.